Hello everyone. In the series of optional syllabus detailing, today we will cover the remaining part of the paper 1 physical geography. In paper 1 section A physical geography, we have 5 chapters, that is geomorphology, climatology. These 2 chapters we already have covered. Now we are left with chapters of ocean, biogeography and the environmental geography. So in this session, we will look out the detailed topics of these 3 chapters. If you have not gone through the earlier 2 chapters, so it is advisable to go through with the geomorphology syllabus detailing and also the climate syllabus detailing. Along with the syllabus detailing, I also have given a brief idea about the questions that are being asked with reference to last 2 years, that is 2024 and 2023 mains examination. So let's begin. When you will look out the oceanography is the third major sphere on the Earth's surface and it is associated with the hydrosphere. So it covers with the hydrosphere, that is the water that is present on the Earth's surface. Now the very first thing that you should be knowing that evolution of ocean crust. So evolution of the ocean crust is the subject matter of the geomorphology. Then the evolution of atmosphere. Evolution of the atmosphere is the subject matter of climatology. So once you have got the idea of how the crust has been formed, atmosphere came into existence, then the formation of water, that is ocean. In fact, it was the ocean only which became the living ground for oncoming of oxygen and also the living. So it is the ocean in which the livings first time appeared on the Earth's surface. So the ocean, how it evolved, how it contributed in the evolution of the atmosphere, how it contributed into the evolution of the living beings. Now the next thing related to the ocean that you should be knowing, that ocean is very deeper, but in this deep ocean what lies? That is the surface feature of the ocean, how the ocean surface looks like. Because when you will look out from the top, from the continental part of the crust, you will only be able to see the ocean water. So below this water what lies, how the surface looks like, that you need to know, and that is known as the bottom topography. We call it as ocean bottom relief or ocean bottom topography. Now the topography differs from one part of the ocean to another part of the ocean. That is why in your syllabus, it is expected from you that you should be knowing the topography of Atlantic Ocean, Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. We also have the Arctic and the Southern Ocean. Southern Ocean is more or less the extended part of the Indian, Atlantic and Pacific, and the Arctic in most part of the year is being covered with the ice. That is why the examiner is less interested in the Arctic relief. So you are supposed to study the bottom relief of Atlantic, Indian and Pacific. Interestingly, this happens to be one of the important area of the syllabus from where regularly you can expect 1 10 marker. So almost every year आपको एक 10 marker यहाँ से मिलेगा, that is the discuss the bottom topography of Indian Ocean, write a short note on the ocean bottom relief of the Atlantic Ocean, the question like this. The next question is associated with the physical characteristic. So in physical characteristic, we have the temperature of the ocean water, salinity of the ocean water and also density. So temperature, salinity and density of the ocean water and how it is interlinked. Temperature, salinity, density, how it is associated, you also need to study. In fact, the association is associated with some other phenomena. So temperature, salinity of the ocean, density of the ocean. Then heat and salt budget of the ocean water. So heat and salt budget of the ocean water. Then we have a oceanic movements, ocean water movements, and we have a primarily three movements: waves, currents, and tides. How the ocean currents originate, what are the forces associated with the ocean currents. We have some other phenomena also, like Ekman spiral, Ekman pumping, geostrophic currents, so western intensification. So there are some related topics that is associated with the ocean current. Then in tides, what is the ebb, what is the flow, what is the effect of the tides, tidal bulge. So these are the some of the extended topic that you are supposed to study. In waves, what is high frequency waves, what is low frequency waves, how the high frequency waves and low frequency waves affect the continental part in the form of low energy coast, high energy coast, depositional feature of the waves, erosional features of the waves. So all these you are supposed to study. Then comes the sediment of the ocean. Sediment of the ocean is mostly in the two form. One of the form is dissolved form. So dissolved form of the sediments, impurities of the ocean is simply known as salinity, but the sediment that get deposited, not dissolved, that is being referred as the ocean deposits. So we have a huge amount of sediment that is present within the ocean in the form of deposit. Then we have the marine resources. So huge resources, the oceans are a resource repository. So huge amount of resources are present in the ocean, and in fact it is being extended in the form of biotic resources, mineral resources, energy resources. So mineral resources are variety of the types, and the mineral resources, oceanic resources, in fact are the some of the 30% of population, like in India, directly depends on the resources that we harness from the coastal area, because 30% of our population is living almost in within the 100 km of the coastal area. Similarly, more than 1/3 global population relying directly or indirectly to the marine resources. Then out of all the marine resources, there is one very important resource, that is the coral reef. Coral reef is being concentrated in very small area, but this is associated with a great habitat of the ocean, from the perspective that almost 25% of all the marine resources, all the marine life is limited to the coral reef. And also the coral reef itself happens to be very important source of livelihood, economic aspect, resources, food, everything. So coral reef, but this coral reef is not like untouched. So coral reef are witnessing one of the greatest stress, and due to the stress, their thickness, their living beings are getting in a way dying up, and when the corals are getting dyed up, their color gets changed. Basically, coral reef is a symbiotic relationship. We have the coral and we have the algae. So coral and algae lives in a symbiotic relationship, and the color of the coralites, color of the corals happens to be white. Whenever there is some form of the stress, in the event of this stress, coral and the algae will get detached, and in that event, coral will again get back to the original color. Whereas when the corals are living in a symbiotic relationship, at that time, coral reef will have one of the most beautiful and vibrant color on this earth surface. So this decoloration of the corals, or simply the coral whitening, is being referred as the coral bleaching. Coral bleaching happens to be one of the major environmental concern, environmental you can say disasters on the earth surface. Coral bleaching also gives us direct insight about the some of the changes that we are witnessing on the earth surface, because when we talk about the climate change, there are different measures, there are different ways out to assess the climate change. But for all those assessment, you require some form of instrument, some calculations, some methodology. But this is the only living beings. By looking that, you can assess that yes, definitely some changes are happening. From that perspective also, coral bleaching is very important. Then in that, changes that are being witnessed on the earth surface, oceans are also witnessing some of the effect, like the sea level change. So जो sea level है आपका rise कर रहा continuously, that is the sea level change. When we say sea level change, basically it is associated with the rising and falling both. But in the last few centuries, the only thing that we are witnessing is the continuously rising of the oceanic water. Then ultimately, the last topic, that is the law of the sea and marine pollution. Law of the sea mainly concerned about the how the oceanic boundary, coastal boundaries are being shared, how the oceanic resources are being distributed, or how it needs to be harnessed. Also, how to access the some of the coastal area for the navigation. So all these is being covered by the law of the sea, that is the UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. So these are the topics that you are supposed to study. Now, if you look out the questions, like this is the 2024 question. So in 2024, there were two questions, one of 10 marker, one of 15 marker, so total 25 marks. In 2023, when you will look out, so there were one question 20 marker, one 10 marker, and one 15 marker, so 45. So regularly you will get the question from the ocean. Like in 2024, with suitable examples, explain the factors causing sea level change. Direct topic. So if you have studied the sea level change, there won't be any kind of problem in writing this question. But if you have not covered that sea level rising, you just think that sea level rise means the only thing that is rising and falling. So definitely you will have some trouble. Next, with suitable sketch, elaborate the bottom topography of the Indian Ocean. Again, direct question. So both the questions are very easy, but it will be easy only when you have covered the syllabus and you have the content. तो अगर आपके पास content है तभी easy होगा. Then, what is ocean ranching? How are aqua cowboys related to such activity? So it is the part of the marine resources, fishing activity in the oceanic area, but not in a, of course, in a controlled manner, environment. How are ocean currents generated? Again, direct questions of the ocean current. Discuss their effects on coastal climates with a special reference to the Pacific Ocean. So you need to give the examples of the Pacific Ocean current. Give an account of the marine resources and their economic significance. How has marine pollution affected such resources? So again, the topic of the marine resources and the marine pollution. So pollution and resources was the topic from where the questions is being asked. This question, you can say it is little bit applied, but other than this, you can see that majority of the questions are the direct. So oceanography एक ऐसा area है जहां से आपको direct question मिलेंगे if you have completed the syllabus properly. Now moving to the next part of our syllabus, that is the biogeography. Biogeography mainly covers the two area, soil, plant, animal. So soil, plant, animal is the main theme of this biogeography. In other words, you can say it is part of the physical, but here you will have some component of the combination of all the three, that is lithosphere, hydrosphere and the atmosphere. So sum total of that three major sphere interaction will ultimately results into the biosphere. So here the first topic you are supposed to study the genesis of the soil. How the soil originate, how the soil will get formed, classification and distribution of the soil, how the soils are being categorized in different category, the types of the soil, and also where the type of soil is distributed, where you will get the zonal soil, where you will get the azonal soil. Within the zonal soil, you will have the soil like pedalfer, then you will have a soil like peduncle. So where you will get the pedalfer, where you will get the peduncle. Then you will have the soil profile. When you will look out the soil formation is basically an in situ process. In situ process means the soil will form where the material basically comes from the same place where the soil is present, and these materials will get deposited, arranged in a layered manner, and these layers are simply known as the horizon. So that is the soil profile. So different layers study is simply known as the soil profile. Then we have some of the problems of soil like soil erosion, degradation and conservation. So soil erosion, degradation, conservation is associated with the soil problems. Then factors influencing. So that is the part of the soil. Now moving to the next component of the biogeography, that is associated with the plant and animal. तो पहला पार्ट बायोजोग्राफी में देखेंगे, इट मेनली कवर्स द सॉइल. So initial 4 topics are associated with the soil. Then we have factors influencing world distribution of plants and animals. How the plants and animals started distributing on different parts of the world. Why some of the animals are limited to the only few areas of the world. Like very good example, marsupial animals, kangaroos. So distribution of plants and animal factors. Then problem of deforestation. So in terms of plant, one of the biggest problem that the whole world is facing is the problem of deforestation and also conservation measures. Then we have the social forestry, agroforestry. Within the India, we have initiated 2 of the very popular programs, social forestry and agroforestry. Social forestry and agroforestry has been launched to provide some of the assistance to the people living in the rural area, mostly the farmers, and also the focus was for the conservation of this forest. Then we have the wildlife. So brief idea about the wildlife, what are the different variety of the wild animals, where it is located, about the some of the conservation reserves like a national park, biosphere reserves. So wildlife is little bit mix up topic, and some component you also supposed to cover in the environment. So this is a mix up topic of both biogeography and the environment. Then we have the major gene pool center. Gene pool is basically the place from where major variety of plant seeds have originated. So the area from where some of the plants, some of the variety of the crops has originated, like we have the wheat, like we have the tea, coffee, in which area it has originated. So that concept is associated with this gene pool center. In the present time period, some of the gene bank we are developing, and it is always being suggestive that for the when you will have the natural sustainability of the environment is in a better condition, so obviously there will be more diversity. So variety of the seeds always happens to be the good, but in the present time period, like in the genetic modification, in genetic modification our main objective is the production. So increased production, we are going for the genetic modification. So commercially it is good, but for the environment from the biogeography perspective, that is not very sustainable idea. Anyway, now we'll look out the question like examine the impact of social forestry in socio-economic transformation of rural areas. Direct question. Social forestry has been initiated in India within this backdrop. So direct question. So you cannot say that this is a question how it can be answered. It is a direct question from the syllabus itself. Soil erosion is a creeping death. Explaining the statement suggests various soil conservation method. Soil erosion, soil conservation, soil degradation is a topic of your syllabus. So direct question from the syllabus. The latitudinal gradient in species richness is an important geographic trend in the biodiversity. This is a question of the biodiversity and the biodiversity distribution. So this question you can say is the mix of biogeography as well as environment. And here you will have the mixing of the 2-3 different topic. Biodiversity topic, then the wildlife topic, then also the distribution of the factors of distribution of plant and animal. Then explain the natural process of soil enrichment and its impact on the food production, again associated with the process of soil formation. Differentiate between the characteristic of organic horizon and the mineral horizon. So that is associated with the topic of soil profile. In soil profile, we have a different horizon. The topmost layer of the horizon is simply known as the humus. So that is the organic horizon, and then the remaining part we have the primarily the mineral horizon. So यहाँ पे भी देखेंगे बायोजियोग्राफी में क्वेश्चंस पूछे जा रहे हैं, जो ट्रेंड है, more number of questions are being asked from the biography, but again here the beauty is, here the good thing is that the questions from the biogeography are very straightforward. So straightforward questions are being asked. moving to the last part of this physical component. In physical component, the last part is the environmental geography. In environmental geography, the very first thing is the principles of ecology. So for this, first you need to know what is the ecology, what is the ecosystem. So concept of ecology, ecosystem, how the ecology is working, that you need to know. Then human ecological adaptation, what is the role of humans in the ecological adaptation, how the humans evolve, so that you need to study. Influence of man on ecology and environment. So this is a two-way process. The role of the humans, how the humans are interacting, and also how the ecology is affecting the humans, that you are supposed to study. Then global and regional ecological changes and imbalances, how the climate change, environmental change is affecting all these ecological changes. There are multiple factors, natural factor, man-made factor, disasters, all these things you are supposed to study. Then ecosystem, their management and conservation. So ecosystem is one of the important component, how to manage, how to conserve, what are the changes that we are witnessing, what are the degradation of the ecosystem. Ecosystem degradation, then we have the environmental degradation, management and conservation. तो environment कैसे degrade हो रहा है, उसको कैसे manage करना है, और also कैसे conserve करना है, that you are supposed to study. Then we have the biodiversity and sustainable development. Biodiversity क्या है, what are the different component of the biodiversity, what are the different types of biodiversity. Then we have the environmental policy. Here the environmental policy, some of the global policy and some of the policy that is being framed within the country. So environmental policy from the global perspective, environmental policy from the India perspective. Then we have the environmental hazards and remedial measures. So it is disaster related thing. So environmental hazards is there. Then we have the remedial measures. What are the measures that we supposed to follow? And then the environmental education and the legislation. Environmental education and legislation primarily from the perspective of the legislation that is prevalent in our country. So this is part of the world physical, but here there will be some of the orientation of the India. So that's it, that these are the topics that you are supposed to study. When you will look out the question from the environment you will find is very much applied in nature. So direct questions are being asked, but also you need to present lots of examples, data. Mountain region are more fragile to ecological changes. So अब ये आंसर है, तो इस आंसर में you need to give the examples also, where it is more fragile, which mountain you are writing. Then the perception, attitude, value and emotion are important components for biodiversity and sustainable environment. So again direct question, but you need to go little bit beyond and you need to explain how the carbon neutrality essential for future environmental conservation. So environmental degradation topic से question पूछा गया है. Then how is deep ecology and concept is different from the shallow ecology. Deep ecology, shallow ecology, like one is the very hardcore ecology environmentalist, pro-environmentalist, and the other one is like more orientation of the humans. So the questions are, what are the factors affecting regional ecological changes? The factors which affect at the regional level changes of the ecology. So the questions are direct, but here in case of environment you need to be little bit more applied. How to tackle the question, what should be the approach of answering, that we will cover in the another series of approach to mains answer writing. So in this we are not going to cover that what exactly should be written in the answer. So these are the topics that you are supposed to study. That is the end of our first section, that is the physical geography. Now in physical geography we have covered the 5 chapters, and for the 5 chapters the only book that you can refer other than the NCERT is the combined book of the Savinder Singh. So you can follow, those who are preparing, those who are looking for the self preparation, you can follow the only one book, that is the Physical Geography by Savinder Singh, and in that book most of the topics of these 5 chapters will be covered. So that is all for this session, and we'll continue this series. In that we will cover the remaining chapters. Thank you.